Welcome to Marathon Champions, the podcast where running legends Benji Durden, Bill Rogers, and Ron Tabb share their timeless wisdom on marathon training and inspire listeners with their wealth of experience. These champions continue to impact the running world today.
Jack, and Benji, I've got to go,
Okay.
but I just am really glad to speak with you, Jack. Many years I have a little printout here. Just before I go, I want to show you. This is from the trials in
Oh,
Florida, Gainesville, when Frank won the World Cross Country Trials in 75, February 9th. Jeff Galloway was there. He was sixth. Barry Brown was fifth. Gary Tuttle's in there. Bunch of names like that.
Now, was that the National AAU meet?
This was the trials for the cross country world
well,
championships.
yeah, it was the AAU trials, but AAU was.
Yeah, I think it was held at Santa Fe course. I think I was
Yeah.
seventh in that, right?
No, this was in Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean, so Gainesville would have been the bigger city. Santa Fe would have been the course.
Yes, you were 10th in this Florida Track Club. Bruce Carpenter and
Oh,
Jim
okay.
Schrader were there. My teammate Scott Graham was there. Um,
Yeah, neat.
Lee Fiddler.
I have a picture of our group together, and
It was in a cow field.
yeah, that's right. And I had my hand in front of Frank, giving him the finger as kind of a joke, but it was
Yeah.
in the picture. And
Oh,
then I saw the picture in a couple magazines or something, and they had taken the finger out of the thing.
do you remember, Jack, how we're running along and we had to jump over these steeplechase barriers? It
Was it
was 15
steeplechase or something?
kilometers.
But it probably wasn't 3 feet, right?
Well,
But
nothing like quite like that, but it was in a
in the
cow
form of
field,
hay
like,
bales or something. Yeah.
I've got
Back
to
when cross
go.
country was harder.
Yeah, I hated that race because I wasn't in too good a shape, and it was really painful.
I think it was kind of a setup for Frank. Frank drove up in his sports car or something, jumped out, won the race, got in his car and drove away. It was like a piece of cake. Jack, I got to go. And
Okay,
Benji,
yeah, great talking with you, Bill.
it was great talking with you too. Great career, Jack. I watched you. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it'd be nice to do all over again, but I don't think that's in the cards.
No, I'm afraid that's not the case. It would really be nice to do that. Well, it's
Maybe we
really
should
been.
Take
do
care of
another.
yourself, Bill.
Bye, Bill.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye.
Benji, we'll talk,
Yeah,
okay?
we'll talk.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I was
I,
going to say you've done the same thing as I, and that was coaching people, and
right.
that was a whole different life that was also kind of fun and rewarding, and meeting new people, and
Yep.
laughing and stuff.
Yeah, and learning about the sport more. I mean, just because I could do something didn't mean I necessarily knew how somebody else should be able to do it. I
Yeah,
mean, because
yeah,
like we said, there's a lot of individual variations in physiology and psychology as well. I mean, just because it's psychologically easy for me to do something in training doesn't mean it is for somebody else.
right, yeah, yeah,
And you have to come up with ways to you get around those limitations.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, recently I have a grandson that's running now, and went to a couple of meetings, including the state meet, and they're in something called Division 3 out of 8 divisions, so it's a pretty small high school, but it was so much fun. Here he is, a 209 half miler anchoring their 4x8 relay, and instead of they were seed 11th and they finished 8th, and slow by any standards, and he was so happy. It was just great. It was like going back in time to watching that thing. So they got 1 point for that. They ended up winning the state meet by half a point.
all
And
right.
but it was, see these people, even though they were running slow, some of them were so happy, and these dedicated men that come out to do the thing, and these small school like things. It was really neat. It kind of brought you back to
Yeah, I mean
a long time ago.
the passion of the sport, why it was important.
Hmm.
It wasn't because you were getting celebrated. It's because you really were excited about your performance. And
Yeah,
s-
yeah,
changing something a little bit, you talked about the Shea sisters. I mean, Mary went on to become a nun, didn't she?
right. Yeah,
And I haven't heard Julie's name in years. I mean, do you know?
No, so she ran in the 84 trials in the marathon,
Right.
and her knees were pretty well shot by then. I just use shot as kind of a cover for not knowing exactly what the issue was, but
But she was having knee issues.
yeah, and I think her husband might be trying to edge her into at least considering a knee replacement. Now, when we had a Hall of Fame thing about three months ago at NC State, and they honored the our teams in 79 and 80 that won the national championship, and
Mhm.
Julie was back for that. But seeing those people as grandmothers now that you coached and they were in college, it was just amazing.
Yeah, they were there at that time though. They were a couple of the best runners in the country.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly with college things, and to think of Julie and her national championships was something called the AIAW
Right,
a
right.
year before the NC everybody was in the NCAA. Um, she won the 3, the 5, and the 10K in that meet. It was only 2 days, and they had a prelim in the 3,000 meters. So I can't imagine that now. Just like I can't imagine running what we did. When I have a hard time walking these days, it's
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
anyway. It was great seeing people as grandmothers that you knew as these young folks, and they're all you could after a few minutes, the personalities were similar to way back then,
the
and
bodies may have changed a bit, but the person's still there.
yeah,
Acquainted.
thanks. Yeah, this is fun. I'm just glad it wasn't posthumous.
Yeah. And I mean, we thought about talking with Jeff for one of these, but it was too late by the time we got around to it.
Oh yeah. Did you go down to his gathering?
No, no, I traveling is something I've not been doing much of lately, for a multitude of reasons. But I'm
Yeah.
on a 3 week cycle of chemo, and I can't afford to be someplace stuck without a plane trip.
It's understandable. I had certainly planned to go, but this Hall of Fame thing came up, and that was pretty important. And
Yeah, I knew about it, and I've heard details. I mean, I got friends still in Atlanta that that went and were able to tell me about it.
yeah, it sounds like they're still going to go forward with that whole approach and all the stuff, or a lot of the stuff that Jeff was the head of offering.
Yeah, yeah, it's just but we're getting old and we're gonna
Yeah,
go away.
yeah, yeah. Kind of miss Jeff. He was one of a kind, as you knew probably better than me.
Yeah, I worked for him for a number of years,
Right.
and at Fidipodes there in Atlanta, and we ran for a bit, but at some point it was becoming too competitive. I mean, it was it wasn't training anymore. We were trying to compete with each other in the training, and that was not a good thing.
Oh, I mean, you're talking about with Jeff?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't. I would. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was a young and
Well, no,
coming up.
I'm not surprised. I just didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, we'd go on runs, and he would push them harder than I wanted to push, or I'd push him harder and he wanted to push, and at some point it just
I'll be
wasn't
darned.
productive.
Yeah.
We were both in the at that point he was past his national caliber performing, and I was just coming up to the edge of that, and
Hmm.
I think there were some ego issues between the two of us, and so we quit
Yeah.
running together.
Well, as much as you look back and it was fun and high school and college and after that, you're always comparing yourself to the
Oh
group
yeah,
you're in. And I did that too. And um, um, in Norway, we went out for a run. Kenny Moore, Frank, myself, Steve Prefontaine, they had taken us up to a fjord-like thing so we could get some running in at 5,000 feet before this was for a week. And there was a local guy that was running, and we were just out for an easy 10-mile run. And he's thinking, I can run with these guys. And he started getting ahead of us, and we'd catch him a little bit. And then egos took over and we blew his doors off for the last mile and a half.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, how how immature that seems, but
Well,
yet
yeah, I
that
mean, but
was
that was the nature of our personalities at the time, and was a little bit
yeah,
immature, but that's what drove us. I mean, we did. I got to where I wouldn't train with people very often because I liked to run the way I wanted to run at the
yeah,
pace I wanted
yeah.
to run, and not at
Hmm.
somebody else's. I mean, Dick Berkeley and I trained together for a bit.
No kidding.
Yeah, he moved to Atlanta to working. He had a work train deal with Coca-Cola, and their headquarters was in Atlanta. So starting in, I think, maybe October or so of 79 through the trials of 80, we trained together. And I learned the way I could do a long run with Dick was to run about a meter or two behind him. And I could control the pace that way
Ah,
because he would stay with me, but if I got up on his shoulder, he'd pick up the pace. And so
yeah.
I would stay about a meter or two behind him and I
I'll
could
be
control the
darned.
pace. Then when
Yeah.
we do speed work, I just had to hang on to him because
Oh, yeah.
he could drop 2 minute pace for an 800 with no effort, and I just have to hang on to him. So it was a great symbiotic relationship
I'll
for
be
training,
darned.
but
Yeah.
I had to learn how to control it and get the value out of it as opposed to get trashed.
Hmm.
And it took, by 80, I'd learned these are my limitations. I have to stay within these limitations. And if I train with somebody that doesn't want to stay in those limitations, I either don't or learn how to control them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Hmm.
but by 80, I had matured enough that I was, rational. When I was training with Jeff, this was the mid 70s. And I was brash and young and wanting to be the top runner in Atlanta. And Jeff
Yeah.
was the top runner in Atlanta.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, it as well as I was an employee and all of these factors coming together at some point is just no, it's not reasonable for us to keep training together. We can work together, but training probably is not a rational thing to do.
So was that kind of something that you were able to just not do, or did you come to an
We
you didn't
Why
talk to
just
each other about that?
we just quit doing it. Uh,
Uh,
uh, Runner, I don't, Lee Fiddler, you know that name?
oh, sure. Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah, Lee and I at that point were starting to Lee and I both were working at the Ansley Philippides store, and so we'd go out and run together in the afternoon. And then sometimes during the week, we'd find another time to run
Mm,
together. But we'd do afternoon easy runs. And Jeff would be off doing whatever Jeff was doing. So he didn't join us on those.
yeah.
And occasionally, Lee and I would do a morning run together from the store. But
Well,
later
with
on,
it,
Lee and I became really good training buddies. And we did a lot of workouts together.
huh. Yeah.
He,
Did Jeff
he's
ever,
he,
did
and Mike
Jeff ever
Caldwell, I know
tell
you know Mike
Mike who?
Caldwell, track rat.
I've just heard the name a lot, but I don't,
He was
and maybe I've even met him. I don't know. John
he
Parker
was in that
mentions his
area
name a
with
lot.
when you were down there. I guess maybe you and he didn't interact as much. But those are my two oldest friends. They ran for Furman and I ran for
Yeah.
Georgia. And yet we are still the three of us are still, from back in the 69, 70 range, we're still really close friends.
Well, that's neat. Hmm.
But I talked to Lee, I guess a week ago. He still runs. He gets in about I guess 4 days a week of running.
Now, did Caldwell get into art a little bit?
No, Caldwell, he actually became an executive at Nike.
Okay.
He
I'm
was
trying to I'm gonna see if he signed something. Let's see. I thought years ago he might have made this. Is
he
that a
may have made that.
possibility?
That's a
What's that?
possibility.
Yeah, I think John had sent me that through Caldwell or something.
Yeah, but yeah, Caldwell and Parker knew each other pretty well.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm part of a chat like thing with I think his name is Kevin Harper, who worked for Nike.
Yep, yep.
Tom Rayner, you probably
Yeah,
know.
Tom and I
Of course, you know
ran together a
John.
lot.
And then there's a guy they call Greeny. His last name is Green that's on the thing, but we're kind of like Facebook friends. And Kevin Harper,
Trying to think who
um,
that would be, Greeny.
he posts a lot. Tom Rayner and John and myself a little bit less, but it's always sports or running related
Now, Tom
stuff.
went on to be the founder of Fleet Feet.
Wow.
But he was in the Atlanta area when I was there, and we ran against each other quite a bit because of the Atlanta Track Club meets or
Yeah,
races.
so I've been up to Maine to see Tom and stay with him a couple summers. Um, but we have a dog that doesn't like to drive, and we took our dog. We had to take our dog with us, and we had to take parts of 3 days driving up to Maine and back.
So, changing the subject a bit, what were some of your favorite road races? There was a lot of famous races that I'd like to have done, and by the time I got around to being ready to do them, they were gone, like Springbank.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember. So that and Virginia 10 miler. What
Yep,
I hated was that for me, I would have to take like 2 weeks off in August and then start my way back because, as you probably know, in the South, if you're aiming toward cross country season or the end of it, at the end of November, weather's getting cooler and you're getting in better shape. So
right.
that was kind of what I did. But I hated those races because at least what I didn't like was it was September and I wasn't
You
in
weren't
real good
ready.
shape.
Yeah.
And yet I was trying to run with the big guys. And it's so I remember it as just being really, really difficult.
Yeah, I was able, even though I lived in Atlanta, I was able to train through the summer. I didn't
Oh,
do
wow.
I didn't do a lot of racing in the summer, but I
That's
could come
tough.
into the early September in good marathon shape. And I was able to run well at the Nike OTC Marathon, which was usually the first week of September.
Yeah, well, the few years Frank was there, he would go off to Taos, New Mexico
Yeah,
and
yeah,
train during the summer. So he was in good shape pretty much all year round.
yeah. And even though I kind of learned about the Lydiard approach, I accidentally kind of backed into the Bowerman approach because I needed to be able to race year round. That was,
Yeah,
the time
yeah,
I lived in it. Lydiard was more of a focus to a track season in the summer, whereas Bowerman, if you did it right, you could race any time of the year. And I,
hmm
I didn't know that's what I was doing. You
hmm
mentioned Igloy earlier, and I was hurt by Igloy, not him personally, but because coaches knew that he did a lot of intervals, but didn't understand that the intervals weren't always hard.
Yeah, right,
They
right.
the coaches had when I was in college, my coach had me do intervals hard 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so I was always flat. I never ran in
hmm
college anywhere near my potential.
Yeah, it was the same with running that workout with Tracy Smith. We were in Denver, which was a little bit lower altitude before going over to Mexico City, and we just ran his longest workout. If you include a bit of a warm up and a warm down, that workout that afternoon was 23 miles. Just crazy, but Tracy was often strong as an ox, and some of the intervals were what he called fresh, but might have been 5 minute mile pace, and then good, and then occasionally hard. And there were 600s and 200s and 400s and a little bit longer jogs between sets and stuff. And I could see why he was just kind of a strong, kind of erect runner that was,
And it
if you're
sounds
going to beat
almost like it
him,
was sort of a structured fartlek.
yeah, yeah, yep.
Where what I was doing is I would do so many 400s and so many 200s and I today I still do some 400s and 200s, but I don't really like them.
Yeah.
I did so many of them.
Now, these were untimed and effort
No, no,
based?
they were timed.
Oh,
Yeah, it was, and we raced them practically. I was
oh,
doing, I could do 20 sub 60 400s,
wow.
but I couldn't run better than 4:15 for the mile because I was always tired, always flat
Oh,
in college. In fact, my 4:15 came when Parker won the SEC meet.
I'll be
And
darned.
and my coach was we had the school record holder was like 4:10 and he was expected to place well in that meet. I ended up beating him and finishing fifth. The coach didn't get my time and neither did the meet. So I don't know for a fact that I what my 4:15 was in terms of tenths. I know the guy in front of me was 4:15.1 and the guy behind me was 4:15.6. So I was somewhere in between there.
Well, with three people that close, that must have been a pretty fast last 400, or you're all kicking, I guess,
We
together.
were all kicking, but Parker he was like I think 4:05 or something. He was well ahead of us. And then there were two other guys right there close to him, and then we were on the straightaway, but we weren't anywhere close to him finishing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I really wasn't a miler. that's because of Jim Ryan's influence at the time. That's what I wanted to be. But I didn't know it. I should have been running the 3 and the 6,
Hmm.
but I wasn't trained to do that. I ran so many 800s in college. One weekend I ran 6 800s. There were 3 different relay races, distance medley, sprint medley,
Oh,
and 4x8. And I ran first round for each of those and then a final for each of those.
whoa.
And
Now,
and I hated 800.
yeah, yeah,
You do
yeah.
that.
I've just run, I think two in my post-college whole life, 800s.
I don't know that I ever ran. I ran maybe 1 or 2 post college. Well, yeah, as a older runner, I'd do some 800 sometimes
Oh, yeah.
as- at a meet, but an all comers. But I can't remember. I
Yeah,
can't remember.
I happened to run one when I was doing more speed work and wanted to try to run a fairly fast mile, so it was a good time to try an 800.
Well, my best mile was I've done it twice. I did like a 2 hour run in the morning and then went to an all comer track meet and ran 4:13.
Wow.
But at the time I was, running 2:11, 2:12 for the marathon. So I was in really good shape anyway.
Yeah, I'll say.
That just shows me that I could have been a better miler than I was.
Yeah, yeah.
I ran 49s for the 400.
No kidding. Man,
But
I couldn't have approached that.
well, I like I say, I've got good biomechanics and
Should have been a 4-minute miler.
well, I should have and did are
Yeah.
not the same thing.
There- yeah, I guess there's a lot of should haves,
Yeah, I should have done better than I did in my best marathon, but I
but
got a really
still,
bad blister.
yeah, yeah.
You can look
Yeah,
at all of these things.
I used to have dreams after the Munich marathon because I thought I had a lot better marathon in me and got a chest cold and carried a handkerchief during the thing. I wouldn't mind blowing my nose, but I was afraid of what might, maybe you get colds like I do, but with me, latent colds, you're kind of coughing up crud.
Yeah,
And then within 2 weeks after the marathon, I lost 9 toenails.
yeah,
Um, I was a high arch supinating runner, and we had these tiger arbories that were kind of
right,
spike lasted,
right.
if I'm
Yeah,
using the right terminology,
yeah. I know the
and
boring.
not paper thin, but there wasn't much to them. And being a, so I tended to not skid exactly, but my foot would like to meet the front of my
Scuffing.
shoes. So I
And
had to tape every toe when I raced,
yeah,
and that didn't protect my toenails. And
no. And you probably got them a little bit shorter than you should have. That was another
oh,
tendency
absolutely. Yeah, I
a
wear
tendency
size
we had.
14 now, and I was racing in 12 and a halves because the
Well, yeah, but
first,
14 now is just the way your foot has changed.
oh,
I
yeah,
read,
yeah, yeah. No, I say there's a age-related size well, a size difference because my 12 and a halves, like the first spikes I ever had as a senior in high school, which was my first year of running, were something called Adidas 99s, and they're
yep,
kangaroo leather,
right.
really light. And I was
They were
thinking,
sprint shoes, weren't they?
there can never be a faster shoe than this because they felt so good.
Yep.
And I ran the first half of my cross country season in, we call them Jack Purcells. They were kind of heavy low cuts with a
Yeah,
blue
yep,
stripe in the front.
yep,
And the coach gave me these 9.9s he had from the previous year, and that was so wonderful.
yep,
We ran on grass, so they might have been 7/8s, but they're at least 3/4 inch spikes that
right,
you wear
yep.
on grass.
Yeah, I remember
I
those
guess they have
days.
faster shoes now than they did in 1962.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've got air bladders in the spikes.
Hmm.
I mean, I've seen some of the not quite as expensive spikes, but some of the better spikes when they'll have, for the high school kids, and they're so much better than what we had. And I had
Yeah.
so much better than what you had. I mean, I had really nice distance spikes. I made a mistake once though. I ran an hour run and decided I'd wear spikes for it. On the track, yeah, an hour run on the track. And I think I got to 35 minutes, something like that, and stopped and changed into flats and continued the hour run. And
Wow.
just, I think it was like 11 and maybe 11.8 or something like that total. And
So,
if I'd started in flats, I'd have gotten to 20K, which would have been pretty good.
wow. So you were going for a time then?
Yeah, yeah. I somehow talked a bunch of good guys. Barry Brown was there.
Oh,
Bob Varsha was there, and we were trying to get, back then you could do hour runs as a postal competition.
right,
And
yeah.
you'd turn on, you do it as a group and then you turn in the time. And I was trying to see if I could get the national title that year.
Oh, neat.
And I was hoping to get to close to 20K and I didn't
Yeah.
quite pull
Yeah,
it
they
off.
also had they had a 3 mile postal
Right?
and I think a relay of each person running 20 quarters.
Yep. Was it 10-mile relay?
I don't remember that part of it. I just remember
Well, if
because
it's
I did
20
the,
quarters, that would be 10 miles, wouldn't it be between
oh,
two?
you mean the total?
Yeah, I
I
think
think,
that's right.
well, I think 40. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
because
so.
yeah, because I remember I never did it, but I remember people doing a two-man 10-mile relay.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to, well, let's see. 20 quarters would have been five. So the two people together would have been 10
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember people doing that.
But we handed off a baton when we
Yeah,
ran
we
that.
we did that too
Yeah. And then,
for those kinds of relays. We did a 24-hour relay.
oh, wow.
And as last I heard, we still had the world record for nine. Jeff was on it. Galloway was on it.
Now, is that because no one ever dared run it after
Well,
that?
like sort of we have the 9-man record, not the 10-man. 10-man was the maximum. And you could have two men
Oh,
to
I
run it.
see.
And so you had a number. And we looked at it, the Atlanta Track Club guys decided we wanted to do it. We were raising money for Gail Barron to go to it was one of the first world marathon championships. We were
Yeah.
trying to raise, so we got sponsorship, and for every mile we got beyond a certain point, there was more money. And so we were hoping we could get the 9-man record. And the 9-man record was something like 5:10 a mile average or something in that ballpark. And so that was an experience. That was a really weird
Holy
experience.
crap.
And Scott Eden was on the team.
Oh, yeah. From Duke.
Yeah, and he began to have issues. Another guy, um, Randy Stroud, he didn't want to drink. He didn't know that
Oh,
the drinking between his legs was not going to be a problem. He was worried
in
about it
24 hours.
for 24 hours, and we didn't know he was doing this. So after about 6 hours, he began to have issues, and we found out why, and he had to drop out. So now we're down to 8 men, and then Scott began to have Achilles problems from running around the track, and he had to drop out. And then Jeff said, "Well, we're not going to get it. I'm going home." And he left. So we ended up having 6 men from like midnight back for like 9 hours.
Oh
And we
my
got the
gosh.
record. And we broke we broke 5-minute pace by about, I want to say 600 something yards. I ended up averaging under 450 a mile for the whole thing.
Wow. That's a whole different thing.
And it was sort of the dividing line between my previous good performances and suddenly I was national caliber.
Whoa.
So my previous marathon to that point was 436. My marathon after that point was 420. I mean
Ha
220.
ha. Did,
226 and 220.
did you or somebody write a story about that particular thing?
I've written a story about it. I'll send you a link to the
Neat.
story.
Where was it? Was it in Racing South or do you remember?
I've just written it since, and I've got it
Oh,
posted on my website. The Atlanta Track Club, so it was a warm day, so that was part of our handicap. But we did that, and basically suddenly for no reason they quit doing 24-hour relay, and
I'll
so
be
we
darned.
still
But
have the
that's,
record because nobody's doing them. And
man, that's something.
people were crying at the end of it because we were so emotionally
Sure.
exhausted, and one of the things that happened is some of the runners started thinking, well, we'll run a slow one, take one of our miles and we'll run a little slower and recover a little bit and we can go back. They never recovered. Whereas
Oh,
I tried to hit the first 150 to 180. I tried to hit it where I could be 5 minutes or better, and I was able to pull it off. If I could get to 180 and I was okay, I knew I was going to be able to finish the whole mile. And then,
how
I'd have
many?
like 25 minutes to recover and do it again.
Holy Toledo. Did you figure out how many miles you ran?
Yeah, I ran 37 miles,
Oh gosh, I can't imagine that.
a mile at a time.
Still,
No, I was at the end there. I was 25 minutes or in that range because there's 6 of us.
wow.
But I'll send you a link.
Yeah, that'd be fun to
Yeah,
read.
but yeah, that though was sort of the dividing line between local caliber Benji and national caliber Benji.
Now, was that confidence, you think?
I think because I was able to do that physiologically, I was ready for better performances. Confidence certainly was there, but I also began to run more intelligently in races.
Now, did that must have led to a little enhanced training to
Well,
yield
yeah,
results?
I started training for the marathon in 74. I was hoping to qualify for the trials in some event. And do you remember the Purdy Gardner tables? Does that ring a bell?
I've just heard of it.
So I had a book of those, and I could look at performances and I could say, okay, I'm capable of this based on this race. I looked at the 5K and the 10K qualifying standards, and I figured I don't really have in the time I've got available to qualify for the trials enough time. And I said, well, I'm just short of the standard for the marathon. I was a lot more short than I realized, but I went and I tried to run a marathon, and I ran the Atlanta Marathon, Peach Bowl, on a really hilly course, 2 laps. I dropped out after the first lap because it was just ridiculous. So 74, I didn't finish. I came back in 75 and I finished, but that was a really stupid race as well. I ran 236, keep saying 236, but Nike had come out with the Oregon Waffle. It was a cross country shoe essentially. It was on a sprinter's last, and I had the waffle sole, and I ordered those for cross country season, but they didn't come until December. So it was after cross country season. And being a young, stupid kid, I ran the marathon in those, and they ate my feet up. So at about 20, and it was a really cold day. It was 29 to 30 degrees throughout the race. And I think it was about 30K, I pulled the shoes off. I couldn't stand it anymore. So I'm running down the road barefooted, and a friend comes by to check on me, and he gave me his shoes, which were a size bigger than what I was wearing, and I put on his shoes and was able to finish. But I ran stupid. That was the stupidity, was running those shoes, as well
Wow.
as it was a really brutal course. Then, that was the 236. And then I went and tried, the qualifying standard was 223, but I kept trying to run like 218 and I wasn't fit enough to run. I ran the Florida relays and it was really hot. I think I ran 237 there. And then the window for qualifying was about up. And so that was early. So December of 75 is when I ran the 236. April or so, I can't remember exactly, was when the Florida relays, and the trials window ended, I think, about May. And I didn't have any marathons that would be in reasonable chance of performing. So I just quit trying. And then I ran that October after the games and ran 220. But I wasn't chasing time anymore. I had been training now for 2 years, basically,
Yeah.
not running. I was running stupid in races, but I'd been racing a lot. So I was just fitter. It was Crawley, Louisiana, and I let everybody go. And I just ran my own pace. We didn't get splits, so I didn't know what I was doing. I was just running. And it was a really foggy, gray day, and I'm just running comfortable and running on and within myself. And I start passing people through the fog. And I didn't know where I was, didn't have any clue where I was in the race. I was just running. I got to about 18 to 20 miles, somewhere in there, and I come up on Barry Brown. And
Ah,
I was known locally as a decent local runner. I come up on Brown, he looks over at me and says, "Damn, it's Durden," and he dropped out. And I didn't know it, but I was second at that point. Way
wow.
ahead of me was Gary Tuttle. He was like 4 minutes ahead of me. But I ended up second in the national championships. Jeff Hollister, who worked for Nike,
Yeah. I
had driven down there for the race. He had a station wagon full of shoes, and he saw me. And now at the 76 marathon trials, they had a shoe called the Nike Elite, and they gave everybody that was the meet or the trials for the marathon a pair of these shoes. Well, Jeff got a pair. I can't remember if they were too big for him or too small. I think they might have been too small. So he gave me those shoes, and I wore those shoes in the race. And Hollister knew I wasn't at the trials, so he came up after the race and wanted to know what the story behind me and having those shoes. And
ah,
and then we sat down and he signed me to Nike. So I ran
well,
for Nike for 7 years because of that race.
isn't that something? Wow. Yeah. So um Jeff Galloway and a fellow named Jim Wilkins, a miler from NC State, and I
Mhm.
stayed with the Hollisters
And
in
Eugene,
Eugene before the 72 trials. People would put people up
Oh yeah, that's how when I ran in Eugene, that's why I stayed there
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Not in his place, but I stayed at a place, I think it was like 3 blocks or 4 blocks
yeah.
away.
And Jeff was a great guy.
Yeah, I loved Hollister.
Yeah,
We'd
I
go for
got
runs and go back to his place. He had an outdoor shower, and we'd shower in that outdoor shower.
yeah.
It was sad
And
when he
Jeff
died.
and I used to argue with Mr. Hollister, Jeff's father,
Ah,
because he was a really staunch Nixon supporter, and we were McGovern supporters. And he would get kind of heated because we were just young guys that didn't know what we were talking about. And here it was Richard Nixon.
Tricky
And
Dick.
I have some Richard Nixon golf balls. And that
Ah,
was because he came to speak to the 68 Olympic athletes. And
he come out to.
I thought he was an ass at the time, but he gave everybody golf balls. And we know he wished us good luck and stuff.
Did he come out to the training camp?
Uh, I don't know. I don't remember that, but
Well, where'd he come to? When you came to the athletes?
I so I associate with him being at the Olympics, but it
Oh, okay.
might have it might have been South Lake Tahoe or Echo Summit. I'm
Yeah,
not, but anyway, I still have the golf balls.
that's cool.